April 9th, 2023. Things are starting to get exciting in April. We have already gotten past the full moon last week, which brings us into eclipse season. We're anticipating next week's solar eclipse. Mercury is in the shadow of his retrograde, and there's stuff happening this week too. This week has one of those weeks that has two flavors, beginning of the week and end of the week, and they are a little bit different. So to start the week, everything before Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, particulars, you know what? I'm just going to come right out and say the particulars aren't terribly important in this case. We're going to just focus on the big picture. We have a couple of things going on that are kind of interesting. We have the planet Uranus. This is almost like Uranus, right? We have the planet Uranus meeting with partnership asteroid Juno. So Uranus, change, revolution, surprises, meeting with the partnership asteroid. So we may see some changes and surprises in partnership. I would guess that if things are going well, this would be kind of like an opportunity to sort of mix things up a little bit. If things are going very well, God bless you. If things are going very well in your relationship, then I would expect this might be a time when you kind of take a leap forward or something along those lines. But if things are not going so well, then it might be time to sort of recalibrate. Now, this is happening in Venus's sign. Venus, the goddess of love and relationships. So it's especially powerful because of that. But it's doubly especially powerful. Yes, it's doubly especially powerful because Venus is at the very end, the 29th degree of Taurus. So we're getting this very strong Venus in Taurus vibe. It's her own sign, and she's very powerful. It's at the very end, just as Uranus and Juno meet, more towards the middle of the sign. So we're getting this strong kind of relationship change, excitement. Let's just leave it at that. Relationship excitement vibe. And you know what else is going to cause excitement is that the sun is meeting with Jupiter in Aries. Now, the sun loves to be in Aries. Jupiter loves to be in Aries. They both love to be out at the end of Aries, and especially Jupiter, actually. And so this is an aspect that can really get us, let's just say, fired up. This isn't specific to relationship, although the energy will flow into relationship or anything else. Now, the caveat about Jupiter and the sun together in Aries is that some folks, not you, but some folks get a little bit full of themselves. It'd be a little bit much, a little extra, a little over the top. People that are tending towards being a little egotistical, this is really going to kind of encourage them to be a little bit more so. But most people will just find it's an optimistic, good, take a leap of faith kind of energy. Like let's give it a shot. Let's go forward. Let's give it a try. We are on a waning moon, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. When you got the sun and Jupiter together, make the most of it. Take the most of this really positive, forward-moving energy. The moon is, still enough going on over there. All of this is happening by Tuesday. What else happens Tuesday? Venus leaves Taurus and goes into Gemini. Now, that means that for the next 3-4 weeks, we're going to have a kind of easygoing, sociable sort of vibe for socializing and connecting with each other. A little more sensuous when Venus is in Taurus, and when she moves into Gemini, it's a little bit more sociable, parties, that kind of thing. It's always a good time to get out and connect with the folks in the neighborhood. It usually happens sometimes in the spring. You've probably been inside for most of the winter. Good time to take a walk through town, go to street fairs if they're starting up already, that kind of stuff. Meet with friends. But the first thing that Venus does is to meet with Pluto. Well, she doesn't meet with Pluto. She trines Pluto. Pluto newly in Aquarius. Venus just getting into Gemini. Now, these two planets have not connected from these signs. Actually, they have not connected with Pluto in Aquarius at all before, I mean, in anyone's experience. I mean, they have connected before, but that was before Pluto was discovered. So this is the very first time that they are connecting in these signs from Gemini to Aquarius or anywhere else. But I think it's kind of interesting that their first aspect, the first aspect that Venus makes to Pluto, now that he's in Aquarius, is an easy trine from the air sign of Gemini. And I'm thinking about where this may take us. Not, not Tuesday, Wednesday type of thing, not right away, not in an obvious kind of way. But it seems to me that what we have here is Venus in this sociable sign of Gemini connecting with Pluto in the very collective oriented sign of Aquarius. And I'm wondering if we aren't looking at some sort of a shift and change in relationship patterns that will play out over the course of Pluto's stay in Aquarius. I was thinking that certainly it pulls away from that kind of you and me forever sort of energy that we have going on, for the last really, really long period of time. And it sort of suggests a little bit more looser kinds of connections between people. I think about when Pluto was in Libra back in the 1970s. You remember that. And we had all of the different alternative relationship stuff was very prominent. Now, this stuff was existent before Pluto went into Libra, and it continues to exist afterwards. But it really came to the fore back when Pluto was in Libra. And we had things like, communal marriage and group marriage and stuff like that, open marriage. Survived to a certain extent and in certain places, but certainly not, the ubiquitous kind of change that we might have expected, given exactly, I mean, it was the discussion at the time. And I'm wondering if maybe what's happening now is with Pluto in Aquarius, trying to Libra, and now Venus, just for a couple of weeks here, trying also to both positions from Gemini. I wonder if we aren't maybe starting to get a little bit of a hint of like, maybe we could make some other changes. What are those changes? I have no clue, and neither do you, and neither does anybody else. I'm just saying that it seems like this is a kind of opening up of relationship patterns. After all, right before this trine between Venus and Pluto, we have Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, conjuncting Juno in Venus's sign. We're really getting a lot of this Aquarian energy flowing into relationships. I would keep my eyes open to see what we see in the course of this week. Again, I'm throwing out ideas, relating it back to stuff that we know, and that's because all we can do is relate to what we know. And what's going to come up in the future is not the same as what happened in the past. It's, we can only think in terms of the past. We can only predict in terms of the past. We can kind of start to pick up on the ideas, the themes. So that should be really interesting to see. Big, open, expansive, experimental kind of energy. All right, enough of that. Because then we hit the last quarter moon and Venus squares Saturn on Friday. So this is the energy of Thursday, Friday. Well, all of those possibilities that were bubbling up in the air with Uranus and Pluto, and now we got all these air signs and so on. Now we've got Saturn in Pisces, and we've got Venus in Gemini, and we've got a square relationship, and it's like, well, let's go slowly. Let's shut down some things. Now we're getting close enough to the waning moon to say, okay, the energy is waning. Saturn is in Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac. So it certainly does seem like we're putting the brakes on things as we get towards the end of the week. It doesn't, I mean, it's still, Saturn is still in Pisces and Venus is still in Gemini. I mean, in terms of like the type of week that you're going to have, I mean, I don't think it's really going to ruin your weekend or anything like that. heaven forfend. But I think that it is, likely that some of the higher flying ideas that we see at the beginning of the week are going to be sort of brought down just a little bit by this square and by the waning moon as we come into next week's eclipse. Remember that throughout the entire week, we are feeling the energy of the eclipse. And I think I'll put out a video on eclipses at midweek next week, but which would be this week, like on the 12th, on Wednesday, the 12th. I would say that the thing about eclipses that we have to remember at all times is that they blow things out of proportion. Okay, so the thing that you're concerned about during the eclipse is indeed something that requires a little bit of attention. It's not like you're making stuff up. It does require attention. You should be paying attention to it. But you're probably seeing it out of proportion. You might be thinking things are much worse than they really are. You could be thinking things are much better than they really are. That's the fisheye mirror that we get with eclipses. So keep that in mind, whether it's the great inspiration of Jupiter conjunct the sun on Monday and Tuesday, or whether it is the oh my gosh, where are we going with this energy of Venus and Saturn on Friday? Be interesting to see, by the way, what happens with markets and things like that, the economy, economic data that we get with Venus square Saturn, and it would be with Mercury in the shadow of his retrograde. It would be interesting to see if we don't have a reaction to economic data that turns out to require revision down the road. That actually happens quite a bit. So, and that's another thing to look at towards the end of the week, is be a little bit suspect, not actually suspicious, but be a little suspect of economic data. I wouldn't think it's a great time to be making any sort of economic move one way or the other. I mean, if you're in the US, you might be right up against the deadline for contributing to your retirement plan or something like that, or filing your taxes. Boy, talk about a Venus in Gemini paperwork square Saturn in Pisces. Oh my gosh, I can't get my paperwork together to put this out there. And Mercury's retrograde and all that could go down like that. It could go down like that. Anyways, if you have anything to do in terms of finances and paperwork and taking care of the taxes, try to get that done early in the week. If you're not in the US and you have a different type of tax deadline, well, that's a good thing too. It's also towards the end of the week with that Venus Saturn square. It's a really, really poor time to get anything appraised or assessed. More or less, I would say it's fine for, it's fine to go out and have a good time. Don't stop yourself from that. It's fine for creative projects. Focus on process rather than product. It's funny, whenever I talk about creative projects, I'm always telling you that, I never tell you when to focus on the product, but focus, well, with square to Saturn, maybe if you get a product out of it, that's okay too. So it's good for enjoyment, it's good for creative projects, and it's good for taking care of business as usual. There's nothing to stop you from taking care of business as usual. This is not a bad time or anything like that by any stretch of the imagination. It's a good time. It's just not great for things that have to do with paperwork and finances and appraisals and stuff like that. Other than that, even the waning moon on the weekend, it should be pretty good. And we have an Aquarius moon, right? In Pisces. Yeah, it should be fine. So enjoy the week, make it a good one. Take advantage of the energy at the start, and just ride out the energy at the end of the week, and don't take things too seriously, because that eclipse energy is pushing things out of proportion. But you know what? You shouldn't take things too seriously anyway.